My drag mother did not help me go become a drag queen, but sort of like found me when I was a fledgling young drag queen, and just kind of like was like really eager to like, can I help you out? Like, you know, also always wanted to be a drag mom. Interestingly enough, she also happens to be, I want to say vegan, but she's vegetarian. She was vegan for a while, and then kind of lapsed back into vegetarianism, and wants to make her way back to being vegan now.
So now you can become her?
So I've kind of been her, like, Harriet Tubman with that. And what's interesting about that too is I have learned to be helpful to Caldwell, is his name. I have learned to be helpful to Caldwell as a fellow vegan by not getting involved, by staying out of it. Because, you know, when I first started hanging, when we became friends, it was like January 2010, when we started hanging out. And I remember the first conversation about like, oh, so you're vegan, huh? I'm like, well, why vegan? Okay, well, blah, blah, blah. And Caldwell is one to play devil's advocate. And so and I hate devil's advocate. I'm just like, why are we wasting time talking about things we don't really, but I just heard a lot of like, I remember getting kind of upset, like talking to him. Like, I remember feeling like I was shutting down, like, okay, this is a conversation I won't be able to have with this person, and getting a little defensive, and I'll admit, feeling a little holier than thou because, well, these are my convictions, and I'm sorry they can't be yours too. But I just kind of backed off with him. Something about him gave me that sense, like, all right, I'm going to back off a little. And 2 months later, our mutual friend Adam was like, oh yeah, do you know, so you're vegan? Oh, Caldwell's vegan. And I'm like, is he? He's like, yeah, he's been vegan for like 2 months now. And I was like, oh, really? Any reason why he's vegan? Did he say? He's like, yeah, some lady on the subway.
Oh, man.
So all my bitching and moaning and kvetching, and all it took, there's a woman, I now know who she is. Her name is Grace Weaver. You can find her on Facebook. If we could make a little like ding, and like her little picture would pop up right there. Grace Weaver. And I remember seeing this woman myself before I went vegan. I was vegetarian. And this woman, I just remember thinking to this woman, like, I'm vegetarian. I'm like, if I go vegan, it's not going to be because some lady pedals past me on a bicycle singing about it. Like, I got very defensive being told I should be vegan. I was like, I'm already vegetarian. And it's funny because as much as I want to be that way to vegetarians and be like, you're actually doing more damage to animal. I remember how I felt as a vegetarian, and I made that leap to going vegan without anyone pushing me. I just feel like it's like stepping onto a conveyor. Like, once you start asking the questions about animal welfare, and I don't mean animal welfare as opposed to animal rights. Of course, I'm about animal rights, and I consider myself an abolitionist vegan. But once you start thinking about the animal's point of view, once you start considering the animals, I feel like it's like, I always say it's like pulling a thread in a sweater. Like, you can start with any question. You can start with, you can start anywhere. It can be like, oh, this little thing. And once you ask that question or pull that thread, it's going to lead to another one. And then it's going to lead to another and another and another. And sooner or later, you will have so much information that you're like, oh, well, now that I know this, I have to, you know. So, in addition to riding around the city on her bicycle and singing, Grace Weaver also goes on the subway. And Caldwell told the story. Caldwell, who is Kitten with a Whip, my drag mother, I asked him about this. I'm like, some lady on the subway? He's like, yeah, she just came through the subway and gave me a pamphlet. I'm like, what did she say? He said, nothing. She didn't say anything. She just had this smile. And she just came, you know, she was going from car to car to car on the train, and she just opened the door, came through the train car, just smiling, just handing everyone these pamphlets. And he said, the moment that pamphlet hit my hand, I was vegan.
Wow. A lot of the people that we've met on the trip so far, who we've talked to, you know, you get to the whole, why did you become vegan? And the running theme is always, everyone gets there a different way. And I think we even talked about that last night when we were talking about how we all became vegan. And And I just, I love that Caldwell, that it was something as simple as just having probably didn't even open it, but he was already aware, and he just needed that little push.
I mean, I like to think that I can't speak for everyone, but in a way, I just feel like we are all more alike than we are different. And so in that way, I feel like I can speak for all of mankind, because I feel that we all have a certain compassion in common, no matter what you want to call it. You know, talk to some hunter or whoever. Even some hunter is going to try to find something humane about what they do or the way they do it. We all have compassion for other beings in common. And when you can just identify with someone on that basis, you know, once the information can kind of puncture that person's armor and find a way to hook into that compassion, something is planted and you can never unplant it. Like, I think from that day forward, it's always going to continue to grow. And unfortunately with Caldwell, you know, my way of like trying to inspire someone is definitely my way, you know, and it's very effective for the people who are receptive to it.
Right.
You know, for the people who need me to come across their path, I'm there. But my way was not the way for... I used to eat animals, you know, and I don't think I was a bad person then. My family still eats animals. I don't think they're bad people. So something just told me, something that knows better than myself. Just at that moment I knew, back off, you know, let him do this. He's certainly aware what he's doing. He must have gotten to a point where he had to wrestle with his own beliefs. And sure enough, after months of saying nothing, he posted something on Facebook saying why I don't eat animals. Here is why I don't eat animals. And he was it wasn't necessarily preachy, but it was very like, you know, eating animals is wrong and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I used to be vegan. I'm vegetarian now. That's very hard for me, but I want to start, you know, going back to vegan. And he started working out recently, and you know, he will have his little protein shake. It's whey protein, and he told me, he's like, with the exception of my after gym workout drink, I'm ready to go vegan again. And you know, and it doesn't matter to me that he does it perfectly. It matters that is, you know, it's as Colleen Patrick-Goudreau always says, that, you know, veganism is not a destination; it's like a means to an end. You know, and so it's enough for me that he. And when I'm talking about him, I really just mean anyone on their journey, that he, on his own, wants to make that journey. And there's not a lot I need to do other than support him. You know, like when he wants it, he's like, could you help me find like a vegan protein? I'm like, absolutely. And I was like, bam, bam, bam. I sent him this. I sent him a link to that. I made a smoothie for him at home. And, you know, it's just so wonderful that there's not a lot you really need to do once someone else, you know, once that message kind of takes root in someone, there's not a whole lot you need to do but to step back and allow them room to grow.
Yeah.
I thank God that I was allowed to find this path on my own. I'm sure if someone tried to, you know, strong arm me into this, I might, out of resistance, have, you know, formed a negative opinion of veganism, you know.
Right.
And I don't ever want to be that negative opinion for someone as preachy as I can be, and I'm often told I am very preachy, but...
As I think we all go through those. I think as when someone first becomes vegan, it's just like you're flooded with all of this information, and like you said, there's no kind of forgetting it, and you feel compelled to share that with other people. And I think everyone goes through the stages of where they're really vocal about it, and then they come back, and then they want to only talk with their close friends about it, and then they need to, you know, Facebook and tweet, you know, it just goes through these patterns. I mean, I still go through that stuff now where I just have a lull and I don't really want to talk about it ever.
Yeah.
You know, and then there are other days where I feel like I really need to just vent and, you know, get it out there. And so,
you know, when I don't want to talk about it, there's almost no time I don't want to talk about it until someone asks me the question, so what do you eat?
Oh my God, me too.
Because I never know how to answer it.
I know.
I'm like, I eat anything that's not nailed down.
Right.
You know, if it's not nailed down and it didn't have parents,
right,
you know, I'll eat it. I mean, and I think the best way to answer that question is not to answer in terms of, well, I eat bulgur wheat and I eat blah, blah, blah. Like, I eat burgers and shakes and fries and greens and plants and smoothies and cookies, and I eat all of it. It's not different food that I eat. Total non sequitur here. As I'm hearing you saying go vegan, or like that we went vegan, it keeps making me think like we didn't actually go vegan, because to go vegan to me sounds like something unusual that we did, that we would like other people to do, although it's unusual. And I don't think of it like I went vegan. I think of it more like I woke up. Like I became aware that I had been doing something unnatural and dangerous all my life. I mean, my dad is not vegan. My dad, his health would benefit greatly. My parents are at that age where, like, if they could make these changes now, it would really help the trajectory of their lives as they transition into, maturity. But my dad, who is someone who could probably really benefit from a vegan diet, he is the first one to, like, email me an article about BPAs in plastic and, like, oh my God, Beth, this is why I never drink out of plastic. This is why I never eat out of plastic. And I mean, there's so many other things that once we become aware of how bad they are for you, we want our loved ones to know about it. And we want, and and it's in that same way, like, I feel like that's all I'm doing by going vegan. It's just like, I realize that this is awful for me, it's awful for the planet, it's awful for any sentient beings. And so I don't feel like I went vegan. I just feel like I woke up, I wish I could put that so much more eloquently, because, like, I mean that on so many levels, but yeah, I just don't feel like I'm doing anything weird. I feel like when you're forced to look at what we're actually doing by eating animals, it's weird.
Yeah.
Like, if you really get forced to think about it, it's weird, it's unnatural, and I don't think it's in line with anyone's inherent values. And if they're going to tell you otherwise, they have to do this dance of denial, this dance of practiced brainwashing, where they have to tell you all these things that, it's like they're trying to tell you, but they're really, like, reminding themselves, like, well, this is what I've been told. It's just, we've been so indoctrinated.